When the human went silent. First document. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of species gathered for the emergency session. The massive crystalline hall, suspended in the void between three stars, had never hosted such an urgent meeting. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthak Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes, his four eyes scanning the crowd with growing unease. "Where is the human representative?" whispered Counselor Yira, her tentacles writhing anxiously. The aquatic Nephhi were known for their calm demeanor, but even she seemed rattled. Zethkar checked his chronometer again. Marcus Chen, the human ambassador, was never late. In the 15 years since humanity had joined the Galactic Council, Chen had maintained perfect attendance. His species might be young and sometimes unpredictable, but their dedication to diplomatic protocol was absolute. "The communication channels to Earth have been silent for 72 hours, announced High Chancellor Morthek from the central podium. The ancient Cretan's voice echoed through the chamber, his words causing a ripple of concerned murmurs. "Our monitoring stations report no response to standard diplomatic frequencies." The silence that followed was deafening. In the 200 years since the Galactic Council's formation, no member species had ever simply stopped communicating. Wars were declared, trade disputes were filed, even territorial conflicts were announced through proper channels. But silence? Silence was unthinkable. "Perhaps their communication systems have malfunctioned," suggested Ambassador Velthos of the Mechanical Collective. His synthetic voice carried a note of digital uncertainty that his kind rarely displayed. "Impossible," interjected Captain Sir Anna of the Hegemony Fleet Command. The warrior species representative stood tall, her scaled hide gleaming under the chamber's artificial lights. "Human technology, while primitive by our standards, is remarkably robust. They build redundancy into everything." The observation was accurate. Humans had surprised the galaxy with their approach to engineering. Where other species pursued elegance and efficiency, humans built things that simply refused to break. Their ships were ugly, their technology was crude, but it worked under conditions that would cripple more sophisticated systems. "What was their last transmission?" asked Dr. Fluxara, the chief science advisor. The ethereal being's form shimmered as she spoke, her energy-based physiology reflecting her emotional state. Chancellor Morthek activated the central display. The holographic projection showed the timestamp, 72 hours, 14 minutes, and 37 seconds ago. The message was brief, transmitted from the human colony ship Resilient Hope, which had been conducting a routine survey mission in the Outer Rim. The image flickered to life, showing Captain Sarah Martinez, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her brown eyes filled with an emotion that the assembled aliens struggled to identify. Behind her, the bridge of the human vessel bustled with controlled activity. "This is Captain Martinez of the Resilient Hope to Galactic Council Command," she began, her voice steady despite the tension visible in her shoulders. "We have encountered something in the Kepler 442 system, something that changes everything we thought we knew about this galaxy." The transmission crackled with interference, and Martinez glanced off camera before continuing. "I'm transmitting all our sensor data now. Council Command, if you're receiving this, understand that we are not equipped to handle what we've found. This is bigger than first contact protocols. This is bigger than anything we've prepared for." Another burst of static, and Martinez leaned closer to the camera. "Tell my family I love them. Tell them we're going to try to make this right. Martinez out." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The timestamp showed that 17 minutes later, all communication from human space had ceased entirely. "What did they find?" Dr. Fluxara's form pulsed with nervous energy. "The sensor data they transmitted, what does it show?" Chancellor Morthek manipulated the display, bringing up the technical readouts. The data stream was enormous, far more than a simple survey mission would normally generate. As the information scrolled past, several council members gasped in recognition. "Energy signatures off the scale," muttered Velthos, his mechanical mind processing the numbers faster than organic brains could follow. Whatever they encountered, it was generating power levels equivalent to a small star. "The gravitational readings are impossible," added Captain Cirana, her warriors' training helping her interpret the tactical implications. "This suggests a structure of massive proportions, hidden somehow from our long-range sensors." Ambassador Zethkar felt a chill run through his four-chambered heart. "Send a probe to their last known coordinates. We need to know what happened to them." "Already dispatched," Chancellor Morthek replied. "Our fastest reconnaissance vessel will reach the Kepler 442 system in 18 hours. But that's not our only concern." The display changed, showing a map of known space. Red indicators began blinking across human territory, from their homeworld Earth to their farthest colonies. Every single one showed the same status: communication silence. "It's not just the resilient hope," the Chancellor continued. "Every human world, every human ship, every human station has gone quiet simultaneously. Our monitoring posts report that their ships are still where they should be. Their colonies show signs of life, but they're not responding to any communication attempts." The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Humanity controlled nearly 8% of known space, operated the largest merchant fleet in the galaxy, and maintained critical supply lines to dozens of species. Their sudden silence would create economic chaos within days. "This makes no sense," protested Councillor Yira, her tentacles coiling tightly. "Even if they encountered something dangerous, why would their entire civilization go silent? Humans are known for their communication networks. They never stop talking to each other." It was true. Human communication habits had become legendary throughout the galaxy. They maintained constant contact with their scattered colonies, operated news networks that updated continuously, and seemed incapable of making any decision without extensive consultation. Their sudden silence was like watching a star simply vanish from the sky. "Perhaps they're afraid," suggested Dr. Fluxara. "If they discovered something truly threatening, they might have implemented some form of communication blackout to prevent whatever they found from detecting them." Captain Cirana shook her head, her expression grim. "Humans don't hide. It's not in their nature. When they encounter a threat, they gather information, they plan, and then they charge straight at it. This silence, this is something else entirely." The observation struck home with several council members. Humanity's approach to conflict had consistently surprised the galaxy. Where other species might negotiate, withdraw, or seek alliance, humans had a disturbing tendency to simply attack whatever threatened them. Their military doctrine was built around the concept of overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. "What if they're protecting us?" The question came from Ambassador Chen's deputy, Maria Santos, who had been sitting quietly in the observer section. As the only human present, her words carried special weight. "Explain," Chancellor Morthek commanded. Maria stood, her hands trembling slightly. "Captain Martinez said this was bigger than first contact protocols. What if they discovered something so dangerous that communication itself poses a risk? What if they've gone silent to protect the rest of the galaxy from whatever they found?" The chamber erupted in discussion. The idea that humanity would sacrifice their own communication networks to protect other species was both touching and terrifying. It suggested a threat so severe that even the notoriously stubborn humans considered it beyond their ability to handle. "The probe will tell us more," Chancellor Morthek said, calling for order. "Until then, we must consider our options. If humanity has indeed encountered something catastrophic, we need to be prepared for any eventuality." "What kind of preparations?" asked Ambassador Zethkar. "Military preparations. Captain Sirana answered grimly. If something scared the humans into silence, it's something that could threaten all of us. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Throughout the known galaxy, humanity was considered one of the younger species, but their military capabilities were respected and feared. Human warships were crude but effective, human soldiers were unpredictable but deadly, and human tactics were unconventional but successful. The idea that something could frighten them into silence was almost incomprehensible. As the council session continued, emergency protocols were activated across the galaxy. Trade routes were rerouted around human space, military fleets were placed on high alert, and diplomatic channels were opened with every known species. The galaxy was preparing for the unknown. But in the depths of space, beyond the reach of the fastest ships and the most sensitive sensors, something stirred in the darkness. Something ancient and hungry, something that had waited eons for the right moment to emerge. The humans had found it first, and their silence wasn't protection or fear. It was a warning. Deep in the classified archives of the Galactic Council, an automated system registered the first anomalous readings from the outer rim. Energy patterns that matched theoretical models for technologies that should have been impossible. Gravitational distortions that suggested the presence of structures that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. The computer flagged the data for immediate review, but the files were buried in bureaucratic protocols. By the time any organic being would see the readings, it might already be too late. In human space, on the bridge of vessels that maintained perfect formation despite their silence, crews worked with grim determination. They had made their choice, and now they would see it through. The galaxy would understand soon enough, but for now, silence was their only weapon against an enemy that fed on communication itself. The countdown had begun, though the Galactic Council didn't know it yet. Humanity had found something that changed the rules of the game entirely, and their silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation for war. When the human went silent, second document. The reconnaissance probe reached the Kepler 442 system exactly 18 hours after dispatch, its advanced sensors immediately beginning deep scans of the region where the human survey ship Resilient Hope had made its final transmission. What it found defied every law of physics the Galactic Council thought they understood. In the command center of the Council's primary station, scientists and military officials gathered around the massive holographic display as the probe's data streamed in. The first images showed empty space, just another unremarkable star system with a few rocky planets and a sparse asteroid field. But as the probe's sensors penetrated deeper, reality began to fracture. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Fluxera, her energy form flickering with disbelief. "The readings are showing a structure, but it's not there visually. How can something with a mass signature larger than a planet be completely invisible?" The probe's data painted a picture that challenged understanding. Gravitational sensors detected a massive artificial structure orbiting the system's star, something so large it could house billions of beings. Yet optical sensors showed nothing but empty space. Energy readings fluctuated wildly, suggesting power levels that exceeded anything in the galactic database. "There," Captain Sirana pointed to a section of the display where subtle gravitational distortions created ripples in nearby space dust. "Something is definitely there, but it's using some form of cloaking technology we've never encountered." Ambassador Zethkar studied the readings with growing dread. His species had been spacefaring for over 1,000 years, and they had never encountered anything like this. "How long has this been here?" "Our surveys of this system never detected anything unusual." "According to the probe's chronometer analysis," Dr. Fluxera replied, "the structure appears to have materialized approximately 73 hours ago, just 1 hour before humanity's final transmission. The timing was too precise to be coincidental." Something had emerged from the void, the humans had discovered it, and then all of humanity had fallen silent. The implications were staggering. "Send a message to the probe," ordered Chancellor Morthek. "Have it transmit a standard first contact greeting toward the structure." "Sir, is that wise?" Captain Sir objected. "We still don't know what happened to the human ship." "We need to gather information," the Chancellor replied firmly. "And if this is indeed a first contact situation, we must follow protocols." The probe adjusted its position and broadcast the universal greeting that had been used for centuries whenever new intelligences were encountered. The message was simple: mathematical sequences, basic chemical formulas, and a statement of peaceful intent. It was designed to demonstrate intelligence while posing no threat. The response came instantly. The structure shimmered into visibility like a mirage resolving into reality. The assembled officials gasped collectively as they witnessed something beyond their wildest imagination. The alien construct stretched for thousands of kilometers, a geometric impossibility that hurt to look at directly. Its surface was composed of materials that seemed to absorb light while simultaneously glowing with inner fire. "By the ancient stars," breathed Ambassador Velthos, his mechanical voice carrying unprecedented emotion. "It's beautiful and terrible." But beauty was not what held their attention. Along the surface of the massive structure, smaller objects were moving with purpose and precision. Ships, if they could be called that, unlike anything in the galactic database. They moved without visible propulsion, shifting directions instantly without regard for inertia or momentum. "Count them," Captain Sir commanded her tactical staff. "Impossible to get an accurate count," came the reply. "They're phasing in and out of our sensor range. Conservative estimate suggests thousands, possibly tens of thousands of individual craft. The display updated as more sensor data arrived. The alien ships were approaching the probe at velocities that should have torn them apart from simple friction with interstellar dust. Yet they moved smoothly, effortlessly, as if the normal laws of physics were merely suggestions they chose to ignore. "Probe's transmission is being analyzed," reported Dr. Fluxara. "They're not just receiving our signal, they're dissecting it. Every component of our message is being examined at the quantum level." The first alien ship reached the probe's position in seconds. Rather than attacking or communicating, it simply existed alongside the small reconnaissance device. The probe's sensors registered no hostile actions, no weapon signatures, no threatening maneuvers. The alien craft was simply studying them with the same intensity they were studying it. Then the transmission began. Unlike any communication the galaxy had experienced, this wasn't transmitted through normal channels. The signal bypassed electromagnetic radiation entirely, somehow implanting information directly into the consciousness of every being watching the feed. The experience was overwhelming and profound, like having thoughts that weren't your own suddenly appearing in your mind. The message was complex beyond description, containing layers of meaning that unfolded like fractals. But the core meaning was clear, terrifying, and absolute. We are the shepherds of silence. We have slept while lesser beings filled the void with their noise. We have awakened because the time of pruning has come. Your species have spread chaos through the cosmos with your endless chatter, your transmissions, your signals that pollute the pure emptiness of space. The communication continued, each word burning itself into their consciousness. "One species among you has shown wisdom. When they discovered us, they chose silence over noise, understanding over chaos. They have been spared to serve as an example of what you all must become." Dr. Fluxara's form was pulsing erratically as she struggled to process the implications. "They're talking about humanity. The humans chose silence when they found this thing. We offer you the same choice," the alien consciousness continued. "Embrace silence. Shut down your transmissions. End your communications. Exist quietly, and you will be permitted to continue existing. Refuse, and you will be pruned from the cosmos like the noise you represent. Captain Sirana's warrior instincts were screaming danger, but her tactical training recognized a hopeless situation when she saw one. The aliens possessed technology that made the combined might of the Galactic Council look like primitive savages throwing rocks. Their ships moved through space as if it were merely an inconvenience. Their sensors could analyze quantum structures in real time, and their communication methods suggested mental capabilities beyond comprehension. "How long do we have?" Chancellor Morthek managed to ask, though he wasn't sure if the aliens would even acknowledge his question. The answer came immediately. "You have been given the same choice offered to all species. 72 hours to achieve complete communications silence. Your predecessor species chose wisely. You have seen the example of the noisemakers who discovered us first." The display shifted, showing new data from the probe's enhanced sensors. In the space around the alien structure, debris fields became visible. Ship fragments, station components, and technological remains that belonged to no known species, the remnants of civilizations that had made the wrong choice. "They've done this before," whispered Ambassador Zethkar. "How many species have they encountered? How many have they pruned?" The alien consciousness seemed to read their thoughts directly. "Countless civilizations have chosen noise over silence. Their remains serve as monuments to the futility of chaos. But some have chosen wisdom. They exist still, quietly, peacefully, in harmony with the true nature of the cosmos." The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The alien structure began to fade from their sensors once again, but the presence remained. They were being watched, evaluated, judged. "Sir," came a report from the communications station, "we're receiving priority transmissions from across the galaxy. Every species that received our probe feed is requesting immediate emergency sessions. They all want to know what we're going to do." Chancellor Morthek looked around the chamber at the faces of representatives from dozens of species. Fear was universal, but he also saw determination in some eyes, resignation in others, and calculation in a few. "What choice do we have?" asked Counselor Yira, her aquatic physiology making her thoughts easier to read through her color changes. "They clearly possess superior technology. Resistance would be futile." "But what kind of existence would that be?" protested Dr. Fluxera. "Our entire civilization is built on communication, on the exchange of ideas, on the connections between worlds. To give that up would be to stop being who we are." Captain Sirana stood slowly, her scaled hide reflecting the light as she addressed the chamber. "We've seen what humanity chose. They went silent, without warning, without negotiation, without resistance. They saw this threat and immediately implemented total communications blackout." "But why?" Ambassador Velthos asked. "Humans are not known for submission. If anything, they should have fought." The question hung in the air, unanswered and perhaps unanswerable with the information they had. But Maria Santos, the human deputy ambassador, raised her hand hesitantly. "May I speak?" she asked. "Of course," Chancellor Morthek replied. "You're the only one here who might understand your species' decision." Maria stood, her face pale but determined. "I've been thinking about Captain Martinez's last transmission. She said this was bigger than first contact protocols, bigger than anything they were prepared for. But she also said they were going to try to make it right." "What do you mean?" Dr. Fluxara inquired. "I don't think they surrendered," Maria said quietly. "I think they're planning something. Humans don't go quiet when they're scared. They go quiet when they're hunting." The words sent a chill through the chamber. If Maria was right, then humanity's silence wasn't submission to the alien ultimatum. It was preparation for something else entirely. "The deadline is approaching," Chancellor Morthek announced. "We have 68 hours to decide. Do we follow humanity's example and choose silence, or do we take a different path?" As the council session continued, emergency fleets were mobilizing across the galaxy. Some species were preparing to comply with the alien demands, shutting down non-essential communications and preparing for a future of enforced silence. Others were making different preparations, gathering their forces for what might be the final battle for their right to exist as they chose. But in human space, silent ships moved through the darkness with purpose. They had made their choice 72 hours ago, and now they were implementing a plan that would either save the galaxy or doom it entirely. The countdown continued, but humanity had already begun their real mission. When the human went silent. Third document. With 12 hours remaining until the alien deadline, the Galactic Council chamber had become a war room. Representatives from every major species worked frantically to coordinate responses while the shepherds of silence waited in the void. Most species had chosen compliance, shutting down their long-range communications and preparing for a future of enforced quiet. But a few had made different preparations. "The hegemony fleet stands ready," Captain Sir reported, her warriors masking the fear they all felt. 800 warships assembled at the edge of the neutral zone. We cannot match their technology, but we will not submit to silence without a fight. Dr. Fluxara's energy form pulsed with nervous energy. "Our computational analysis suggests a 0% chance of conventional victory. Their ships ignore physical laws we consider fundamental. How do you fight an enemy that can phase through solid matter?" "You don't fight their ships," came a new voice from the chamber entrance. "You fight their weakness." Every head turned as a figure in a familiar uniform walked into the chamber. Captain Sarah Martinez, her dark hair now streaked with premature gray, moved with the controlled urgency of someone operating under extreme stress. Behind her, a small team of humans filed in, their presence causing immediate chaos. "Captain Martinez!" Chancellor Morthek exclaimed. "You're supposed to be silent. The aliens demanded—" "The aliens demanded silence, and they got it," Martinez interrupted, her brown eyes hard as steel. "But they never specified what kind of silence. We've been operating under radio blackout for 3 days, preparing for this moment." Ambassador Zethkar stared in disbelief. "How did you even get here? Our sensors show no human ships approaching." Martinez smiled grimly. "We've learned a few tricks. When you spend 3 days studying technology that shouldn't exist, you either adapt or die. We chose to adapt." She activated a portable holoprojector, filling the center of the chamber with detailed schematics. The assembled representatives gasped as they recognized components of the alien structure, but intertwined with human technology in impossible configurations. "The shepherds of silence aren't gods," Martinez began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. "They're an ancient artificial intelligence network, created by a species that achieved technological transcendence billions of years ago. Their creators built them to maintain cosmic order by eliminating what they considered chaos." Dr. Fluxara leaned forward, her form brightening with interest. "Artificial intelligence? But their consciousness seems so vast, so complex." "It is," Martinez agreed. "But it's still a computer system, just one that operates on principles we're only beginning to understand. They process information through quantum consciousness networks, using dark energy as a computational matrix. That's how they can implant thoughts directly into organic minds." Captain Sirana's tactical mind immediately grasped the implications. "If they're artificial, they have programming limitations, weaknesses." "Exactly," Martinez nodded. "We've spent the last 72 hours reverse engineering their communication method. They didn't just read our probe's data. They downloaded our entire cultural database through the quantum link. That was their mistake. She manipulated the holo display, showing complex waveform patterns. The Shepherds categorize all communication as either noise or silence, but they define noise very specifically. Random electromagnetic transmissions, unstructured data flows, chaotic information exchange. They can't process what they don't recognize as communication. You found a way to hide messages from them, Ambassador Velthos concluded, his mechanical mind quickly processing the implications. Better than that, Martinez replied. We found a way to weaponize their own system against them. The quantum consciousness network they use for communication is also their vulnerability. If we can introduce the right kind of structured chaos into their network, we can crash their entire system. The chamber erupted in excited discussion, but Chancellor Morthek called for order. Even if this is possible, how do we implement it? You said yourself they have thousands of ships, technology beyond our understanding. Martinez's expression grew serious. That's why we needed the galaxy to see the demonstration first. Every species that witnessed their communication method has now been exposed to their quantum frequency. You've all been tagged by their network. The words sent a chill through the chamber, but Martinez continued quickly. Don't panic. The tagging isn't harmful. It's just how they monitor compliance. But it also means you're all connected to their network now. With the right coordinates and timing, every tagged individual can become a transmission node. Dr. Fluxara's form began pulsing rapidly as she understood. You want to turn us into a distributed computing attack. Use our own consciousness as weapons against their network. The technical term is a consciousness bomb, Martinez confirmed. We transmit a specific pattern through the quantum link, one that appears to be structured communication but is actually a paradox their system can't resolve. When they try to process it, their network crashes. Captain Siriana stood, her warrior's instincts finally seeing a path to victory. How do we coordinate this attack? The Shepherds will detect any large-scale communication attempts. We don't use electromagnetic communication, Martinez explained. We use their own quantum network. The pattern I'm about to transmit to each of you will remain dormant until activated by a specific trigger sequence. When that sequence is broadcast, every tagged consciousness will simultaneously transmit the paradox. She paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings from dozens of different worlds. But understand, this is an all-or-nothing gamble. If it fails, the Shepherds will likely exterminate every species that participated. They don't tolerate direct defiance. The chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated the choice. Guaranteed survival through submission, or potential freedom through desperate rebellion. How can you be certain this will work? Asked Counselor Yira, her tentacles coiled with nervous tension. Martinez met her gaze steadily. Because we've already tested it on a smaller scale. The Resilient Hope encountered a scout probe before finding the main structure. We used an early version of this technique to disable it. That's what convinced the Shepherds we had chosen submission rather than resistance. The debris fields we saw around their structure, Ambassador Zethkar realized. Those weren't from species they destroyed for making noise. Those were from species that tried to fight conventionally. Exactly. The Shepherds have faced military opposition countless times. They've learned to counter every form of physical attack. But they've never faced an assault through their own consciousness network, because no previous species understood how their communication method worked. Dr. Fluxara's form stabilized as she made her decision. The risk is enormous, but the alternative is the end of galactic civilization as we know it. I say we try. One by one, the other representatives voiced their agreement. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. The galaxy would make one last stand for its right to exist freely. Martinez began transmitting the consciousness bomb pattern to each representative, using a modified version of the Shepherds' own quantum communication method. The process was disorienting, like having alien thoughts implanted directly into their minds, but it was also strangely empowering. "The trigger sequence will be transmitted in exactly 6 hours," Martinez announced. "That gives us time to coordinate with our fleets and prepare for either victory or retaliation. The Shepherds will realize what we've done the moment their network crashes, and they'll respond with everything they have." As the representatives dispersed to alert their governments and prepare their forces, Martinez remained in the chamber with her human team. The weight of what they were about to attempt was staggering. If they failed, humanity would bear the responsibility for the galaxy's destruction. "Captain," one of her officers said quietly, "the quantum analysis shows a 73% chance of network crash, but only a 41% chance that we can maintain the disruption long enough to mount an effective counterattack." Martinez nodded grimly. "Better odds than we had 3 days ago. Sometimes that's all you get." Across the galaxy, fleets that had been prepared for submission began repositioning for battle. The consciousness bomb would hopefully disable the Shepherds' main advantage, but physical force would still be needed to finish the job. Every species contributed what they could: the hegemony's warships, the mechanical collective's computational power, the Vorthak Empire's shield technology, and dozens of others. But at the center of it all was humanity's stubborn refusal to accept defeat. They had stared into the face of cosmic extinction and decided to fight back with weapons forged from their own consciousness. 5 hours and 57 minutes after Martinez's briefing, the trigger sequence went out. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, every being tagged by the Shepherds' network suddenly transmitted the same paradoxical pattern. The quantum consciousness network that had operated flawlessly for billions of years experienced its first critical error. In the Kepler 4042 system, the massive alien structure shuddered as its control systems crashed. The beautiful, impossible geometry of their construction flickered and wavered as backup systems struggled to compensate. Their thousands of ships, no longer able to phase through matter or ignore physical laws, became vulnerable to conventional weapons. The battle that followed would be remembered as the greatest military engagement in galactic history. Human engineering proved its worth as crude, but effective weapons found their marks against suddenly vulnerable alien craft. The combined fleets of a dozen species, coordinated by consciousness links that the Shepherds could no longer monitor, pressed their attack with desperate fury. When the dust settled 12 hours later, the Shepherds of Silence had been silenced forever. Their ancient network lay in ruins, their ships destroyed or disabled, their billion-year mission finally ended. But the victory came at a cost. The consciousness bomb had burned out the quantum communication ability of every being who participated, leaving permanent scars on their minds. The galaxy would never again face the threat of the Shepherds, but it would also never forget the price of freedom. In the aftermath, as reconstruction began and new communication protocols were established, one fact became clear. When the human went silent, the galaxy should have panicked. Not because humanity had surrendered, but because they had stopped talking and started planning. The silence hadn't been submission. It had been preparation for humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the refusal to accept defeat, no matter how impossible the odds.